Welcome back to part 3 of our story. If you haven't had a chance to catch up on part 1 and 2, don't worry. I've included links to them in the description below. So, without further ado, let's dive right into the next chapter of our tale. Yusuke, a member of Claw's 7th Division, was surprised to hear that Ritsu managed to hurt Megumu, but Megumu corrected him, saying that it was another much stronger Esper kid who did it. He had to use the spray on him and escape as he wasn't a match for him. Yusuke was annoyed as their orders were to capture the strongest Espers, but he ended up letting that one go. Terada overheard their conversation and offered to help them, promising to make sure that the division leader wouldn't find out. As Terada left, Yusuke wondered if they could beat the stronger Esper kid. Megumu explained that he was stronger than Terada, but didn't take Mob seriously. If he had, he could have beaten him easily in the beginning. Megumu would guess that Terada would go fully prepared and wouldn't underestimate the situation. Teruki offered his help to Mob, explaining that a Claw member would be coming for them soon. At that moment, Terada showed up, but he ended up letting his guard down and was easily defeated. Teruki tortured him, and Terada spilled everything. Meanwhile, the upper echelon members of the 7th Division were having a meeting. Their division leader informed them that the boss would be returning to Japan in a month and would take some of them to the HQ base. However, Megumu wouldn't be going due to how much he had screwed up that day. Ritsu and the other Espers were talking with Muto, who tried to convince them to join Claw. As they refused, he took one of the twins, Kaido, and killed him in the other room, showing them his body. Ritsu wanted to escape, and Dachi explained that his brother Kato was alive. Muto had made him believe that the rest were dead, using some hypnosis ability. Ritsu formed a plan, and he managed to get out of the cell and go into the camera's blind spot as he defeated the guards. They proceeded to look for Kaido using Ria's ability. Terada took Mob and Teruki at their base, but he managed to escape. He attacked them, and Teruki took him on, but Terada managed to catch him with his whips. Mob then smashed Terada between 2 trees and defeated him, making Teruki comment that the moment Mob considered you an enemy, you were done, and that the battle would only last one night. They knocked out 2 guards, and Dimple took over one of them. The upper echelon leaders realized that they had intruders, and Megumu headed out to face Mob and finally kill him. As he found them, Mob said he didn't have time and used his powers to stop Megumu and start smashing him against the walls until he was knocked out. As Megumu didn't respond, the upper echelon members realized that they were up against someone strong. Ritsu and the rest of the group had finally managed to track down Kaido's location and sneak into the enemy's hideout. However, they were quickly discovered and caught. One man taunted them, claiming that they had no chance against the psychics of the organization, but ultimately decided to let them go. He warned them that they were no match for the power of the organization, which aimed to rule the world, and even lowly lackeys like him would be rewarded for their loyalty. Meanwhile, Teruki, Dimple, and Mob split up to search for their missing friends. Dimple stumbled upon a strange-looking door, but was quickly discovered by some men who believed he was an imposter. However, Dimple proved them wrong by easily defeating them. Inside the room, he discovered that it was an awakening room, where pain was used to awaken latent psychic powers. But his peaceful exploration was interrupted by the arrival of upper echelon member Matsuo, who expressed interest in adding Dimple to his collection. Teruki fought his way through the enemy's henchmen, hoping to find Ritsu or the others. However, he was confronted by Miyagawa, who had the power to engulf everything in flames. Despite Miyagawa's provocation, Teruki used his barrier to make the pyrokinetic burn himself, ultimately defeating him. But he was caught off guard by Meraki, who knocked him out from behind. Ritsu managed to defeat some of the weaker opponents, but was soon confronted by Sho. Knowing that he couldn't let his friends down, Ritsu decided to take on Sho while the others made their escape. Meanwhile, Ma found himself facing off against Mikai's dolls, but was soon interrupted by Tsuchiya. As she beats him, Mob starts crying as he doesn't want to fight a woman, due to his master telling him that only the biggest losers hit women. Tsuchiya says that he is a gentleman, but wants to fight him equally. He couldn't afford to lose, and eventually defeated her. Dimple, on the other hand, found himself facing off against Matsuo and his army of spirits. Unable to defend himself, Dimple resorted to calling back his own spirits after each attack. However, Matsuo was one step ahead of him and unleashed a horde of evil spirits, trapping Dimple in a jar with them. As Mob continued to search for his friends, he stumbled upon Ritsu, who had been defeated by Muto's hypnosis. Muto had convinced Mob that he was dead and bleeding, causing Mob's rejection emotion to reach its breaking point. With a surge of power, Mob knocked out Muto and fainted. Sho reveals himself and comments that Mob manages to amplify and reverse Muto's illusion. Sho brings Ritsu and Mob to the division leader, and moments later, Matsu arrives as he had captured Dimple too, and says that he threw him in a jar with 100 evil spirits, where they will devour each other and only one will come out. Mob found himself lost in a dense forest with his younger brother Ritsu. As they tried to find their way out, Ritsu's quick thinking allowed them to escape. When Mob finally woke up in a room with Ritsu and their friend Teruki, he was relieved to see that his brother was safe. However, Teruki warned them that they couldn't use their psychic powers inside the room. Despite this, Mob was confident that Ritsu would come up with a plan. Little did they know, the sinister members of the upper echelon had plans for them. They intended to brainwash Mob and his friends before recruiting them as new members. However, Sho had a different idea in mind. He suggested that they be brought to headquarters instead. Meanwhile, Riken was on a mission to rescue Mob and the others. He tracked their GPS signal and found the building they were being held captive in. As he attempted to enter the building, the guards stopped him, suspicious of his motives. But Regan acted as if he was an important person, and they assumed that he was Claw's boss. As he made his way inside, he saw the kids trying to escape and immediately scolded the guards for their actions. They took him to Mob's group, and everyone was surprised to see that the boss was actually Mob's master. Regan demanded that they release the kids and started to leave, but the upper echelon showed up, drawn by the presence of the boss. The members were puzzled by Regan's appearance, and he introduced himself. Suddenly, Ishiguro attacked him, but Teruki quickly created a barrier to protect him. As the guards were caught in the crossfire, Regan ordered them to leave and save themselves. Mob heads to fight Ishiguro, but seeing he intends to use psychic powers, Regan dropkicks Ishiguro, reminding Mob of his rule to not use powers on humans. Having no choice, he decides to fight the echelon members himself and punches Muraki. His plan backfires, making the enemy angry with Ishiguro for releasing his powers and destroying a part of the facility. The other members then engage Mob, Ritsu, and Teruki in a fight. Regan keeps telling Mob not to fight them and run, while Teruki and Ritsu tell him only he can fight them using his full power. Witnessing them all get hurt and not wanting them to die, Mob's murderous intent reaches 100%. But Raiden slaps him, bringing him back to his senses and telling him not to do it as he will suffer later. Mob remembered how he first met Raiden. He had gone to his office, claiming that he had psychic powers. At first, Regan thought it was a joke, but when Mob caught his dropped teacup using his powers, he realized that the boy was telling the truth. From then on, Regan mentored Mob on how to exorcise spirits. Back in the present, Yoshika gets behind Regan and slashes him with his sword, making Regan fall in front of Mob. Ritsu's heart sank as he watched Regan lay motionless before Mob. He knew something terrible was about to happen, and feared that Mob wouldn't be able to handle it. However, Mob's demeanor was calm and collected, as he expressed his reluctance to harm anyone. Yet he knew that if he didn't take action, they would be killed. With a heavy heart, he decided to entrust everything to his master. Regan slowly rose to his feet, his eyes fixed on Yoshika's katana. He reached out and grabbed it, testing its weight in his hand. To his surprise, it felt like plastic. Yoshika charged towards him, attempting to slice off Regan's head. But to his amazement, his blade had no effect on Regan, who proceeded to break it in half with ease. Matsuo then unleashed his ultimate spirit, but Regan barely felt a thing. He wondered if it was a mere plushie, and with a single punch, he blew it up. Muraki then sent copies of himself, but Regan easily dispersed them. The moment Regan told Mob it was okay to run, Mob temporarily transferred all of his power to Regan, leaving only gratitude in his heart for his master. Regan, at 1000%, goes against Ishiguro, who uses black holes, but Regan pops them like soap bubbles. Ishiguro charges Regan, using his gravity to land some heavy attacks. However, Regan still stands up, making Ishiguro realize how dense a barrier Regan has and that his black holes are taking more energy than they can hold, which is why they are bursting. He grabs Ishiguro and throws him, taking off his mask and slamming him into a wall. Yusuke and Muraki try attacking Regan, but it has no effect. He starts to scold them, breaking their dreams and making them realize they are just commoners. Ishiguro tells him he rejects what he said, surprising everyone that he is actually an old man, not a young girl. Ishiguro, unable to accept that, starts releasing his power, but Regan and Mob are exhausted. Sho then attacks Ishiguro and easily beats him. He tells Mob he is disappointed in him and explains that the 7th Division was to be dissolved and he should have taken anyone useful to the HQ. But as there are no such people in the 7th Division, he leaves. Matsuo says that only one spirit is left in his poison jar, and his ultimate creation would be ready, but Dimple emerges and knocks him out cold, saying that he regained some of his powers, and that he can help now, but Mob tells him that everything is over. Later, Shinji tells Ritsu that Mob spoke with him, and he decides to reveal that he framed Tenga and the others. Speaking with Tenga, he tells him he already knew, but didn't care as he realized everyone hated him, and they just waited for something like that to get him, and then continued his training with the Body Improvement Club. Teruki contacted Kenji and the Kid Espers from Awakening Lab, asking them to join him in his quest to become stronger. They accepted the offer, eager to hone their skills. Dimple visited Regan, informing him that Mob had collapsed from exhaustion due to his rigorous training with the Body Improvement Club. Reagan was surprised that he could see Dimple, but decided to enlist his help. As for Sho, he returned to the 7th Division HQ to retrieve his phone. He informed his father, the boss, that his organization was no longer the strongest and that he needed to return to Japan soon. Reagan sees there is a reward for Tsuchinoko and calls Mob. They head into the forest looking for one, but he finds Matsutake mushrooms and decides to collect them. A large monster appears, and Mob defeats it, making it spew all the mushrooms it ate and shrink. Happy with the number of mushrooms collected, Reagan decides to leave, saying that the Tsuchinoko doesn't exist, without realizing the defeated monster was one. A farmer calls Reagan, explaining that for the last 3 years, his harvest crops have been dying and that he saw something strange. He tells Reagan that he can't afford to pay him much due to needing to pay for his son's school, and Reagan proposes he give him 30% of his harvest. Reagan then calls Mob, and he feels a presence from the scarecrow and destroys it. Roots emerge from the ground, revealing the real body of the spirit, who manages to capture Reagan and make Mob surrender. Mob realizes the spirit isn't possessing the roots, but just controlling them, and decides to do the same and overwrite the spirit's commands. The spirit takes control of other roots and faces Mob, but it gets easily beaten by Mob, who gives the plants stronger comments. Later, Reagan paid Mob with some seeds as the harvest was ruined, and the farmer could only pay with soil, fertilizer, and seeds. Shinji decides to step down from being the student council president. Knowing that Mob can't currently lead the Psycho Helmet cult, Ichi convinces Mob to run for student council president, as that way, the girl he likes, Tsubomi Takane, would be interested in him. Mob agrees and starts preparing. But on the day of voting, he completely freezes on the stage and doesn't even say a word for the 5 minutes he got, and Shinji is re-elected. Mob receives a love letter in his locker room, and a girl, Emi, confesses that she likes him and wants to date him. They start to walk home daily with Mob, saying that his part-time job is at a bookstore, and Emi confesses that she wants to be a novel writer. A week after going out, Mob reads Emi's novel and likes it. She tells Mob that she knew he was returning to school after they walked home, and is still happy that he walks with her, even though he rejected her. She explains that she took a bet with her friends and lost and had to ask him out because of it, but since Mob spent time with her, her friends didn't learn she was rejected. Not wanting to lie to him anymore, Emi returns to her friends, who see her novel and laugh about it. Emi explains she wrote it while bored. Her friend then rips the novel to pieces, but Mob shows up and asks her to stop. He starts collecting the pieces of paper, commenting that this isn't trash for him, and he decides to consider his feelings more. Emi decides to join him and tells her friends to go without her. Mob and Emi collect almost all the pieces, but then a gust of wind blows them all. Emi tells him she will just write it again, but Mob uses his powers, gathers all the pieces together, and tells Emi that he is an Esper. Mob tells all of this to Dimple, who wonders why he didn't tell him sooner if something fun like this was happening. He asks Mob if Emi fell for him due to his Esper powers, but Mob says no way would happen. Meanwhile, Emi starts to think that Mob is amazing and gets an idea for a story about a middle school student with psychic powers. The next day, due to not getting any jobs, Reagan decides to take Mob and head to a place where recently a lot of rumors about urban legends have started. He knows that the urban legends are fake, but he also knows that he can get people to believe in the supernatural more easily. As they stand there, Banshamaru Shinra, another psychic, shows up and tries to chase him off. A woman approaches them and explains that she has a spirit next to her, which Mob confirms. Realizing they are genuine psychics, she asks them to eliminate the urban legends, and Reagan gladly accepts. Banshamaru is surprised that Reagan took the job for just 20,000 yen, while he typically starts at 200,000 and would have taken 500,000 for this job. Reagan manages to convince him to help him, and as they split, he asks Dimple to follow Banshamaru for his safety. While investigating, Banshamaru finds Red Raincoat, who is just a pervert wanting to flash himself in front of kids, but he ends up running away from him. Meanwhile, Reagan finds the human-faced dog, knowing it was just a prank, and washes its face. Banshamaru continues to chase the Red Raincoat man and finally catches up to him. But the man uses a stun baton, saying he is enjoying his rising popularity. It starts to rain, and a woman appears, who happens to be Kochise Kana. The Red Raincoat man tries to use the stun baton on her, but it has no effect, and she knocks him out. She starts to drag him into the water, but Banshamaru gets up and uses a spirit hold, which she quickly escapes. She easily defeats and starts dragging him, but Dimple possesses him and starts fighting with her. He manages to call Reagan and inform him that he is facing the Kochise Kana. Mob and Reagan arrive just in time to save Dimple. Reagan tries to take a picture of Kochise Kana, but she can't be seen on camera. Dimple explains that she is neither natural nor fake, and is born from the masses' imagination, fear, and curiosity, with her appearance and strength all decided by humans. Banshamaru explains that she feeds on their fear and power, and since they feared her long ago, they won't be able to face her. As she attacks again, Mob takes her on with Dimple realizing that Mob never knew any of these urban legends, so he doesn't fear her or know her. Mob then easily defeats her. Later the police arrest the Red Raincoat Man, and Banshamaru goes with them. Reiken decides to check the last urban legend about Dash Granny. They enter a long tunnel and see a running granny. Reiken tells Mob to exorcise her, but he fails, commanding that she is much stronger than Kuchisei Kana. They start to panic and run away from her. The granny manages to catch up and run past them, making Reagan realize it is just an old woman running. Mob starts to cry, commenting that he runs every day, yet a granny beats him. Reagan decides to make his own website, excited to get more jobs. Well, now I want to hear from you. Do you want to see more of this story? Let me know in the comments below. Your opinion is important to me, so if you have any suggestions or questions, don't hesitate to ask. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing and giving it a thumbs up to show your support. Thank you for watching.